for these Knowledge Fridays was specifically chosen for 11 a.m. because it's 8 a.m. on the West Coast. So that means it's the start of the workday for the people on the West Coast. We're not asking them to get up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning to attend a training session. So that means a lot, when you schedule a meeting during lunchtime. If it's for people in the central time zone, 12 o'clock is their 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock is their 12 o'clock. So those are all things that you need to consider also when you're setting up your meeting. And one of the most important things is to start your meeting on time. If they took the time to attend your meeting, you should be respectful of starting your meeting on time. If you have somebody who is habitually late to a meeting, once you start setting your meetings on time and you stick to that start time, you will find that they may not be so late anymore. And so it's just respectful, and the other people will respect you better for holding your meeting on time as well. And I just thought of something. I cannot see the chat in my view. So if any time anybody has any question or a comment pops up, feel free just to go ahead and ask that out loud. I'm happy to answer them or questions.
Leah, I started the recording for those people who aren't gone.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Angela just popped in and asked if I was recording. I always forget to do that for myself. Thank you, Julie.
You can set up your meetings to auto record. This is good for the meeting itself. When you set a meeting, you can set it to auto record when you start the meeting.
Okay. See, I didn't know that. Thank you. All right. All right. Moving on. So now listening. Some nonverbal cues of active listening. There's things that we do that we may not be aware of, or maybe we are aware of. And so we consciously make sure that we're exhibiting those nonverbal cues. They're very, very important to the person leading the meeting, or if it's a training session, the person leading that session, the facilitator. But what are some things that are important to you? I've got a list here of nonverbal cues. Is there anything on this list that people look for that aren't listed here for nonverbal cues? No? Okay, we'll go on.
One thing, Leah, is their attire.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Some people, it's not a good idea to show up in a meeting in sweatpants, or a sweatshirt or slouchy. But yeah, even when I'm working at home, I'll have a Balluff shirt on like I do today. I'm at the office today. I have my Balluff shirt on, but even when I'm working at home, I have a Balluff shirt on if I'm going to have some meetings. I don't wear Balluff shirts to the office every day, but for some reason, when I feel like I'm working at home and have virtual meetings, I should have a Balluff shirt on. I don't know why. Just a little quirk with me, I guess. But
don't drink alcohol during the meetings either.
Yeah, don't do that.
We did a virtual training with a customer, and the engineer was drinking wine at 2:00 in the afternoon on the call.
Really?
Honest to God.
Wow. Yep. Yeah. What does that say? What does that say? Yeah.
Well, I hope you won the sale.
We're still working on it. We're trying to get him sober to get him some answers back.
Well, one of the biggest frustrations about virtual meetings is the inability to determine people's body language. And those are some important things that you need to think about. Reading body language, allows you to sway your conversation. It helps you to know where to take the conversation to. It allows you to pick up if someone is frustrated or they're not understanding a concept that they're doing. All these expressions we make with our face and our body says a lot that we don't even think about. those of you who know me pretty well know my husband's a police officer, and he took training on how to read those cues. He was also warned not to use the training at home, which I thought was a pretty good idea. But it also makes me aware that when I'm answering his questions or something, it's like, is he evaluating or is he just listening to me as a husband? I'm not quite so sure. So I got to make sure I'm answering in a way that hopefully doesn't set off anything. Not that I need to hide anything, but it just makes you wonder when you know somebody has that skill, what they're thinking of your reply. But this is a tough hurdle for me, is not being able to see people. When people don't have their cameras on, it's tough for me because I like to see people's expressions. I want to know what's going on. So how we can avoid some of that is definitely having our cameras on. And to me, if somebody's camera is off and their mic is muted, to me, that's a big clue that they're just there. They may not be completely listening. They may not be participating. And that's just a clue to me. So when I see some invitations for virtual meetings and it says this is a camera on meeting, I like that. And I think that's a nice, subtle way to let people know that you expect them to have their cameras on for the meeting. Does anybody have another suggestion that they put in their invite or they say to people when they're on the meeting, how to get somebody to turn their camera on? Anything coming up in the chat?
Nothing in the chat, but for the marketing meetings, we have just made it a given that for having a team meeting, your camera is on. If you're gonna keep it off, you have to state your reasoning. Like, I had COVID last week. I kept my camera off because it was not going to be pretty. I said I'm listening, but I'm also coughing my head off. So I'm muted and my camera's off, but I'm here. But generally speaking, we are required to have our camera on during a team meeting.
Okay, well, that's good. That's a good requirement and perfectly understandable as to why you didn't have yours on, and you gave an explanation. So, that's totally acceptable.
There should be exceptions made for people who are really ugly.
Well,
Because that could be a distraction.
it could be, but we're all beautiful people, Joe, in our
Okay.
own way. We're all beautiful.
Is that why I'm not allowed on your call, Kempo?
I always mute Vincent's video when he comes on.
Another sign that some people may not be paying attention on their video is if you have to continually repeat a question or a statement that you've made. If they come back and say, "Can you say that again?" Occasionally is one thing, but if you have to keep doing that, that's a cue that maybe they're not truly paying attention. And one thing I have found is, because I take attendance on these meetings and I'm checking it, and I'm sometimes one of the last one to sign off on these Knowledge Friday sessions, is that if somebody is still logged on and everybody else has logged off of the call, I know chances are they could be on a call that came in and they just haven't clicked off yet. And I get that. But then if they just continue to be logged on and forever and ever and ever, it kind of makes you wonder, were they really, really in tune and paying attention?
Elvis has left the building.
Right.
Hey,
And,
Leah,
yeah.
Leah, I was going to suggest also, when you set up your meeting, when you start talking to people, it's important to tell them where your camera is. Like, for example, if your camera is to the side and you're looking, straight ahead at your screen, it may not look like you're looking at them. So it's kind of really important to say, "Hey, my camera is here. So when you see me looking this way, I'm looking at my camera."
Yeah.
Because people may think you're even distracted and not even looking at them. So it's really important to let them know where your camera is. And when they see you looking to the side, it's because you're looking at them on their screen.
Yeah. I noticed that. I figured that out because I have my laptop screen and my monitor right here. And if I just open the Teams call and the team, the meeting is right here on my monitor, I'm looking at my monitor, but my camera is over here on my laptop. So I've learned to like share my screen and slide it over that way. So that way I am looking at the screen while I'm talking to them. Yeah. Good point. Thanks for bringing that up. But, facial expressions can tell you if people are bored and not paying attention, their body language, if they're sitting back in their chair, if they're slouching, if they're not sitting upright, their posture isn't that great, and it looks like they're totally engaged, that can mean one thing too. And then of course, sometimes people turn their cameras on and they don't realize it. And we see them in their car as they're driving, their camera on their phone is sitting in their console, or it's up on their mirror, or their window while they're driving, or they're out taking a walk and you see all the ground running behind. So we really do have to pay attention to those cameras when we're supposed to have them on, and when we're not, sometimes we do have them on. So we need to make sure we pay attention to all of that. All right. So we talked about the nonverbal. So let's talk about the visual a little, which some of them are the same. This is a list of common visual cues. The first one there, verbal. So do you speak clearly? That's a biggie. These meetings, a lot of it is your voice, everything that you're saying. And so you want to make sure that you are speaking clearly when you're communicating. Is your voice muffled? Are you one of those people when you talk, your voice trails off at the end of a sentence and then you start talking really low and people don't understand what you're saying there at the end? And one of the questions, have you ever listened to yourself on a recording? Do you go back, if you give a presentation, do you go back and listen to yourself? Do you record yourself beforehand just to check things out, to say, oh, I need to be better there. I need to quit using those filler words, the and, the but, the so, and all those kinds of things that can be annoying to your listeners. Do you speak too fast? Do you speak too slow? Do you have good rise and fall in your voice, or are you monotone? Are you just speaking at the same tone the entire time and people are getting put to sleep by your tone? So those are other things that you need to be conscious of when you're thinking about your verbal communication.
Hey, Leah, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of it or not, but within Teams, in the language and speech menu, there's a speaker coach that if you turn that on, it will monitor just you and your verbal, how you speak throughout the presentation. And at the end, it will give you a summary of how many filler words you used, what your tonality was, did you repeat yourself a lot? It's really an awesome tool that a lot of people aren't aware of that's out there, and it's called Speaker Coach in Teams. So this is exactly, that's something that Rhonda Petty found, and she told me about it, and I've been using it. It's pretty awesome.
Wow,
I can tell.
I did not know that was there, so thank you. That's very helpful. And everybody needs to take advantage of that, to make sure that you are using this coaching tool, because this is one of those things that's hard to coach people on, are their verbal skills when they're on the phone. And it's going to help you not only in your meetings, but it's going to help you on your sales calls at all. And we need to be able to accept some constructive criticism in that area, because we want to be the best we can be. And this is a great unbiased tool that can help us. So thanks, Joe.
As a matter of fact, you should do it right now for yourself. Just go to your three dots, go down to language and speech, and turn on speaker coach. And at the end of this, you can just see for yourself how you did.
All right, I got to escape out of here.
Oh, no, you just have your three little dots at the top there.
I know, but I couldn't see them on my thing.
Yeah,
Not
hit the three
in the
dots
view that I had.
right there. Hit language and speech.
Yeah.
And then turn on speaker coach.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
I'll give you all a report after I'm done with this and see how I did. Okay, thanks. Okay, graphics. Are we back to visual? We already talked about nonverbal, so I'm not going to do that. Graphics. So when you're using a slide deck, like I am today, and of course most people do when they're having a training session like this, but sometimes you use a slide deck in your meetings, right, to help keep you on target with your bullets and things. First of all, as Julie would want me to tell you, we need to comply with corporate guidelines for our backgrounds on the slides. And you want to make sure that you're using eye-pleasing fonts, size, and colors for your wording. We're going to discuss all that on a different slide, but want to make sure that we remember that we're supposed to use corporate guidelines. And if you have any questions about that, I'm sure Julie doesn't mind if you contact her. But we also have a module on that in eAcademy, where you can go on there and learn about the marketing guidelines that we have. Auditory, that is on there, and that's for all of those auditory learners, the people who prefer to hear things. That's how they learn best. And so for that, you want to make sure that you have good sound. One of those things is to make sure that you're using a headset or earbuds. Make sure you're attending the meeting or facilitating the meeting in a quiet space. If at all possible, don't attend or facilitate a meeting from the road. Your first concern is your safety. Secondly, there's probably background noise in your car. And thirdly is you're unable to take notes while you're taking that call while you're in the car. And you want to also make sure that you don't have device overload, that you don't have a lot of apps open on your computer, because that can diminish the quality of the sound and the visuals on your computer. So you want to make sure that you take care of that, because an auditory learner hangs on your every word. So it's important that you speak clearly and you have the best sound options in place for them. Now, the last bullet there, the kinesthetic, those are for your people that are hands-on learners who like to do, see, participate, all of those things. So you want to make sure you have some things for them to do. They're the ones who may be giving you high fives, click on the applause button, have different backgrounds in your meetings. And if it's possible, you want to have polls for them to participate in, or word cloud so they can submit some ideas. And they also may be actively participating in the chat, or they could be participating in private chats going on during the meeting. Those are all things to do. So what not to do for these visual cues, Vince already brought it up. Don't drink a glass of wine at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's probably not a good idea. You want to avoid constant typing because it doesn't look like you're really paying attention. Michael, he already brought up about attending, in leisure clothes, your attire, how you look. And also another visual clue is don't forget to do your homework for the call, for the meeting. If there's some things that you were supposed to present or you're supposed to have prepared, don't be sitting there shuffling papers while you're attending the meetings trying to figure out what it is you're supposed to say next. You should already have all those things ready and laying there by your side so you are able to participate when needed. And also your background. One of the big pet peeves of virtual meetings is having that background where you fade in and out. Those cute professional backgrounds in the past, sometimes when you move, it shifts and you shift and fade in and out of the meeting. People don't really like that too much. Anybody else have anything that they would like to share at this point on visual cues, good or bad things that they've seen?
Leah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a bad thing if you hear the clickety clack of a keyboard, as long as you tell who you're having the meeting with that you're taking notes, because a lot of people use other programs and they don't do the pen and paper. So if you're going to do that, just let them know if they hear it, you're just taking notes.
Mm-hmm. That's also a courtesy when you're in an in-person meeting as well. because you don't want the people in the meeting sitting there thinking that you're just checking your emails or you're working on a project. If you are a computer note taker, you should always let people know that's what you're doing.
Hey,
Thanks
Leah.
for that. Uh-huh.
It's a little complicated to get into now, but if you're sharing video, a lot of times in Teams, video gets choppy if you just try to share a screen. There is a way that you actually take the video and put it into a PowerPoint presentation. And there's a way to share that PowerPoint presentation instead of sharing your screen or sharing a window. You actually share the file. And that video comes across very clear, very clean, not choppy. So if anybody has to do that, and you're not sure, give me a call. I can kind of walk you through it. It's kind of hard to explain quickly on the call here now. But there's a workaround to make your videos go smoother.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, speaking of that, I'm going to go to the next screen here where you will see a link that I am not going to use because we are in Teams and it will be choppy, but I will share this link with you in the chat. You can come back and see it in the meeting. And it involves speaking. There are several videos out there on YouTube to help you with your speaking skills. And that is what this link here is for. And that's what I'll share. Because sometimes we just need to have an honest conversation with ourselves about our speaking skills. For example, I am told quite often that I sound like a little kid. I've heard it my entire adult life. I'm used to it. I'm not offended by it anymore. People call our house asking to speak with my parents, to speak with the mom and dad, or the lady of the house, and I tell them I am the lady of the house, and then that baffles them, and they don't know where to go with a call, and usually about that time I'll tell them I'm not interested, and we hang up anyway. But that's just something that I have had to learn to recognize about myself, and I'm okay with it. There's not really anything I can do about it, except if I want to try to speak in a lower voice, which that's not going to last very long, and then it's going to come across fake. So I am who I am. It is what it is. I also know that when I get excited about a topic, that the pitch of my voice goes up and I tend to talk really, really fast. And so I have to learn to control that and learn to try not to get so excited about things and sometimes you just can't help it. But again, I recognize that about myself. And so I have to work on those things. So we just have to make sure we're a little thick-skinned on that. Like I said, we are who we are. There's some things we can't change, but we can learn to accept constructive criticism and try to make ourselves better. And I know anybody who has taken the presentation skills class, you're recorded, you get that video, you self-critique, you peer critique, and then George has a system in which he's critiquing you, and it's all just to make us better. And I know in sales support and in tech support, calls are recorded, and then there's some coaching sessions that are held with the managers, and it's all about making us better, and that's the way we should approach it. We shouldn't dread it. Maybe we do a little bit. I know sales managers, they sometimes sit in on calls with their team, and it's all coaching. It's all in good effort to make us better at what we do. This screen has a little exercise that comes from that video on that link that I'm going to share about this person who's trying to help coach you to say your words more clear. So if you were to read this screen, the goal is to say it as clear and as quickly as possible. Those don't go hand in hand at first. And you may sit there and you're reading those right now, but reading them isn't the same as saying them. So if you sit here and you go through and you're like, ba da ga, pad da ga, bad da go, po dog go, boo do goo, poo dad goo, BDG, PDG, bay day gay, pay day gay. This guy can rattle off these words so quick and you can understand what he says. But these are just words that will help you enunciate a little bit better. I have another screen that has another section of words on there. I'm not going to read those with you, but these are just examples, and you wouldn't believe how long I had to sit and listen to write these down to make sure that I had them for the video. But these are a good set of words to help you do that exercise. You can also say the alphabet very intentional, and you can practice that, and it helps with the movement of your mouth and the sounds, and it helps you get better at speaking words. So when I say more intentional, it would be something like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So if you practice all of that, it helps you say your letters more clearly, because we all have to spell Balluff when we're saying it to a customer. I always have to spell my last name. And when I spell my last name, I say C-R-I-D as in David, L-I-N. And inevitably, somebody comes back and says D-O-I-N. I do not know how they confuse my L with a O, but they do repeatedly. And so you have to speak clearly, slowly, but then you can also use identifiers with your letters when you say like A as in Alpha, S as in Sierra, M as in Mike. That helps people understand your spelling better also. Anybody else have any tips about speaking more clearly? Things that they do, practices that they share? All right.
Really, I think a lot of people don't think about that, but it's really important that you play back some recordings of yourself, because a lot of people don't realize how they sound unless they listen to those recordings. So it's one of the best practice things you can do for yourself is record what you're saying and listen to it back.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter how long you've been leading meetings or leading a training session or being a salesperson and making calls. We can all learn all the time because we get into ruts. We think that we're performing at our peak, and sometimes we just may not be having a good day. And so having those recordings can help keep us on our toes and aware of what we're doing. Another thing is proper language. Our customers speak a different language than we do. We speak a different language than they know. So they know their world, their industry, their applications, and their company. So it's okay for us to make sure that we ask questions about their machines, about their applications, and we want to make sure that we take notes so we understand and we know how to follow up with them better. And technical information that we give, we want to make sure that the customer understands our answers, understand how the technology works, our products, and we need to also, very importantly, use terminology that they can understand, because our language is not the same as theirs. And so we have to find a happy medium to work with each other to make sure we're speaking the same language so we can help get the right order, we can solve the right problem, suggest the right products, or a quick fix, whatever it needs to do. We need to make sure that we're coming to a common ground and using the same proper language. Anybody else have any suggestions on this topic?
Because sometimes we get carried away with our own acronyms, assuming that the customers know what we're speaking about. So this is a very good point. We have to make sure that we don't make assumptions that our customers know what a BES is or a CMTK is.
Right. I call it Balluffese.
Yep.
We can't always speak Balluffese to everyone because not everyone understands. All right. So I said we would come back into graphics and fonts and all of those things. So that's where we're at right now. If you're using graphics in the meetings, here's just some points. This can also tie into presentation skills, but for virtual meetings, I think this is very important too. So that's why I added this to this topic right here. First of all, your graphics need to represent the topic in which you're discussing. You need to make sure that you know, if it's a technical topic, you got just the right amount of tech information in there, but you also need to make sure that your graphics are representative of your audience. If you're presenting to mostly women, you don't want to have all your slide deck be pictures of men, you know, and vice versa. You want to make sure you have mixed cultures. You want to have a mix, just a diverse pictures of, if you're using pictures of people in your presentations or in your meetings. And you want to make sure that you have just the right tech amount of pictures in there also. Now, I realize when you're having these calls with your customers, you might be talking about specific products, and we have these ready-made pictures and graphics available. That's all wonderful, but we want to make sure that we're choosing the right ones, and that if we can hone in. If there's a lot of details in a picture, make sure that there's another picture that shows all the details that we want to be seen. The font for slides, it suggests that you use at least a 30 font. These words here on these tabs are all 30 font. So that may sound huge when you're thinking about it in a Word document. It absolutely is. But when you have it on your slide deck, not so much. It's right there. It allows everybody to see your words. And you also want to make sure that you're using a font that is clear for the shapes of the letters. You don't want to use the handwriting tool, because those are hard to read. This is Calibri 30. It has crisp lines. You're able to make out all the letters, and that's what you want to do, is to make sure you choose a font like that. Now, there are all kinds of rules for your slides. I'm going to go over just a few here. I'll put this information in the chat if you want to use this later on when you're preparing some slides yourself. But one of the rules when it comes to a slide is the 10, 20, 30 rule. No more than 10 slides, no longer than 20 minutes, and no lower than 30 point font size. Then there's the 777 rule. Use no more than 7 words per line, 7 lines per visual. And if you need more than 7, then you want to make subpoints after the main point. And then there's the 6x6 rule, 1 thought per line, no more than 6 bullet points per slide, no more than 6 words per bullet point or line. I see this is crazy. And then there's the 2-4-8. 2 minutes per slide, 4 bullet points per slide, and 8 words per bullet. And then they're also saying that the information on your slide should be absorbed in about 3 seconds. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of information. You can go to Google and you can type in information about, you know, slide details, fonts and graphics, and you'll see there is a whole list. I'm not sure if one is better than the other. I know having lots of words on a slide is overwhelming. Having lots of pictures on a slide is overwhelming. Your presentation is not, your graphics is not your presentation. You are the presenter. You are the person that is leading the meeting. That is what should be the first and foremost important thing. Your graphics on your slide decks in your meetings, they are just there to enhance your meeting. They're there to be aids. They're there to be prompters for speaking points. We shouldn't be sitting there reading our slides to the person everybody can read. That's not what we're there to do. We're there to discuss what is on the slide for the topic. Julie, do you have anything that you would like to add to that from a marketing perspective?
I put something in the chat. We do have a lot of rules on corporate identity, and those are not there just because. They're there so that all of our materials, regardless of what country you're in, have very similar feel and tone to them. They always look like Balluff. For fonts, you should be using Arial or Helvetica. You can use all of the versions of. We don't love italics, but Helvetica has a lot of different options, so you've got choices there. And use the slide template. if you go, and if you don't know where that's at, you can find it in Canto. If you don't know anything about Canto, reach out to me. There's an e-academy on that. It's a really great library of resources on graphics and text, and the templates are there, and it gives you options. It makes putting the deck together easier for you. Instead of looking at it as having fewer options, you can look at it as having more time to concentrate on your content and not have to worry about how to put those together on your deck. And my team is always here to support. If you feel like you want an extra set of eyes to read it, or you just need a little bit more flair, you want something a little fancier, Zach Schlarman or I can definitely jump in and, give us a little bit of time, but happy to help with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that course in e-academy is really helpful. And the slides there on our, I'm losing my words. In the, on the drive, the marketing drive, right? There's a place on the public drive on Homer where you can go collect the slide deck, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
You can find it in Canto, you can find it on iBalluff, and you can find it on the server. We've tried to put it every place we thought somebody might look. And then, like I said, Canto gives you lots of options on graphics. If you're looking for an image, please don't just go find clip art or search something online. If you're doing an internal presentation, yep, you can probably get away with that. But if that presentation was to make its way out to anyone else, especially publicly, if we're using a graphic that we don't have rights to, even if you found it online, we can get fined for that, and has definitely happened. So
yes, absolutely.
Please use approved graphics.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way in my volunteer world. Somebody found a graphic that was used in a newsletter, and our organization was charged $500 for using a graphic that somebody used that they had no permission to use. So yeah, make sure that you are using approved pictures.
Right. And if you need something that is special that we can't find in Canto, Zach or I have resources, and we can go find you other graphics or pictures or whatever you're needing.
Great, thanks. The last bullet there is about colors. Colors mean a lot. We have our Balluff template that we use with our colors, and sometimes we like to get a little creative by adding more into our slides if we're having them for a meeting or a presentation. But colors aren't always good for some people. Some people are colorblind, or color vision deficient is the way to say that now. And it's something that some people forget about. But 1 in 10 men are colorblind, and that's because color blindedness is inherited and passed on through the X chromosome. That's why more men are colorblind than women. And the color that they have the hardest time seeing is red and green. 75% of those affected with the visual disparity are unable to distinguish green, and 25% are unable to distinguish red. So those are really big numbers. And it's very rare for people with vision deficiency for color that they're not able to see blue and yellow. But if that's the case, they really just see shades of gray. But it is something that we need to think about when we're adding colors to our graphics, that we're appeasing all of our audience. And I found this chart here that shows the meanings of colors in some cultures. And so since we're a global company, I thought this might be pretty important. This, of course, is just one chart. You can go out in Google World and find all other kinds of things. I know in my education of adult learning, I was always taught that you don't write anybody's name in red because that indicates death. And so it's just one rule that is stuck with me. I will never use the color red when writing somebody's name. I will find another marker of whatever other color I can use. That just sat with me for some reason. But colors indicate different meanings in different cultures. And I don't think that anybody is going to take too great of offense to it. But if we're talking about this when we're creating our slide decks, I just kind of thought this was important to put in there. And another thing just to think about. Anybody have any comments or questions about the slide that we just went over about the fonts and the colors and the sizing and graphics or anything? Anything to share, good or bad, that has happened to you in any of your meetings or presentations?
The other important reason for sticking with the standard fonts is that sometimes if you give the presentation to someone to put up for you, if their PowerPoint doesn't contain any special fonts that you created, they will not show up and your whole presentation will look kind of messed up. So it's a good point for sticking with the standard fonts.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. So as we start to get to the end of this, here's just some tips to be a more polished in your virtual meetings. Study your favorite broadcasters. You know, if you want to emulate them, you want to have good speaking skills, that they're not a bad person to think about. I know when we moved to this virtual world and we started having all these more meetings, lighting, you started to see people with cameras and lightings and everything all around them in different angles so you could get the best view, because sometimes lighting isn't great in the offices. If I'm sitting at my desk, I always have to pull the blind down because I look like a silhouette sitting at my desk. I'm just a gray image sitting there. So I have to pull my blinds down. That's why I'm not sitting there right now. So I could have the freedom to have the boardroom here for my meeting. You also want to be aware of your frame, your personal frame. I have this guy that attends Zoom calls in my volunteer organization, and he's always adjusting, you know, making sure he's just right. And he's sitting very, very still and looking straight into the camera and making sure he's paying attention. That's just his thing. But, you know, if you're off, you want to make sure that you can be seen and that you're in the center of the frame. Eye contact is good. I don't think I need to explain that one. Transmit energy. You know, people want to know you're engaged. They want to know you're enjoying the topic. And this voice coach has kind of got me thrown right now because I keep hearing myself say, and thanks, Joe.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's a good tool. But you want to make sure you're transmitting energy, that when you think about when you come to an in-person meeting, do you like attending a meeting with somebody that is just there, that doesn't have good positive energy about them? It's the same thing when we're on a virtual meeting. You want to bring you with you. You want to bring that positive presence that you have. So you want to do that. And I thought this was a fun little tip. Say something about yourself by using objects in the background. Will Healy, when I was on meetings with him, I would see his lightsabers in his background, you know, for Star Wars. He's always got a different hat or something there sitting there. It's just fun to see those kinds of things. And in our virtual world and meetings that we have, people are a lot more comfortable with that rather than just having this generic background behind them that doesn't say anything. People want to get to know you a little bit better. So it's nice to have some of those objects in the background. And then in wrapping up here, shouldn't have to say it, but it's the same. Run your meetings as if you would have other meetings you've attended. We always want to be prepared, stick to a schedule and stay on topic, and allow time for questions. And you always want to make time for fun. We've had some comments here that it's been fun. We've had other people that have shared, you know, open it up, let people participate in your meeting, because you'll find that there's always something that you may have forgot. and they can bring a little bit of their spice to the meeting too, and their knowledge, and help everybody learn along the way. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to add?
I think what you said about the environment and the lighting and everything is really key. You know, if you're sitting there in the shadows looking like a witness protection program person, it's not going to come across like you're a professional.
No, yeah. And that's what it looks like when I'm sitting at my desk. I'm in witness protection.
And also,
All right. Go ahead.
good lighting makes you look younger. See?
Yes.
See how young I look with good light.
Yes.
See, my lighting helps me look very young. Yeah. So
You got
lighting,
some great cameras.
yeah, lighting makes you look really young.
All right, I have one last poll for you. Let me pull it up here. Where'd it go? Got another poll here. Just want to see where'd they go. They're loading. New poll. I hate meetings. I was going to ask you who your favorite broadcaster was. All right. Want to just hear, what was your biggest takeaway from today? Throw that out there. Let us know. Hopefully you learned something that you didn't know before, or you were reminded of something that you forgot. Anybody else have anything that they would like to share or put out there?
I just say these are some things that you can also use for if you're ever interested in making a video to post on social media, talking about something on about a product or an upcoming event on LinkedIn or something like that. Having good lighting, backgrounds, uniform, energy, the tone of your voice, all that is the same that you would do if you're making a short 30-second video that you wanted to post online or for social media.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just things we don't think about. We, and we don't think about them because we aren't taught to think about them. We just get on there and do what we do. But for somebody, that's kind of part of my world and things that I think about and I consider. And if we don't share that information, then other people don't know about it. All right. Well, thank you all for your time today. We're right at the top of the hour. If nobody has any other comments, we will close out. I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope the weather is fun and fabulous where you are. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Claudia, do you have a question?
I don't. I was trying to do one of the reactions and just clicked the wrong one.
High five.
High five.
There you go.
Thanks, Leah.
Thanks,
Thank
Leah.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
Leah.
you.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
You too.
Everyone.
Thanks, Leah.
You're welcome.